Good morning, everybody. Happy hump day to you. March 19th, 2025. I have all of your stories here today for your rush hour ride to work. Astronauts have returned. They plunged into the waters at 60 miles an hour. We'll give that full update and show you the visual. Pretty wild stuff. And the actor from the White Lotus TV show on HBO who talked about his full frontal scene now issues a bit of an apology. So we'll get that. Plus, a little recap of my interview with Taylor Lorenz. That's right. You're going to want to hear what I have to say about the interview following our public spat. It's all the drama you really need. Plus, Ryan Reynolds, in a motion to dismiss, called Justin Baldoni a predator, and let's just say shots were fired. And I'm going to share some of the more juicy things that he said yesterday in a very big, a court document that took some shots at Justin Baldoni. Also, one of the Canadian leaders has leaked what it looks like Trump plans to do with regard to global tariffs. That's right. We'll share that story. Plus, freedom of speech, is it at risk? How so? We'll have all this. Look, we have an eclectic amount of content here, and I'm at my mobile studio, and I'm slinging you podcast after podcast, and it keeps coming, and we keep delivering it. All these stories and more happening right now on The Rush. You know what's funny? Here I am ready to complain about how many podcasts I've done this week. I really have, between Juicy Scoop and Donna Bowling and of course all of my own content, plus some stand-up comedy shows. I'm doing Zach Peter tomorrow. It's just one thing after another. I'll get into my Taylor Lorenz convo and share all of that in a minute. But again, how can I complain about podcasting? What's so hard about that? You're just talking to people. Here we have astronauts plunging into the ocean. Of course, they sort of float down in these parachutes, but here's a former astronaut describing what it's like to literally come back from space. Have a listen.
Very strange feeling, especially once you land in the capsule in the water. The main thing you're feeling is, as you mentioned, gravity. You haven't been feeling the effects of gravity for 6 months, and it feels like just this huge magnetic, strange force that's welding you into your seat.
Like a sumo wrestler sitting on you kind of thing?
You, except it's there, even your lips and your cheeks, everything feels heavy. So when I landed with my commander of the Dragon capsule, Raja Chari, we tried to pick up some water bottles and we dropped them in our lap because they just felt so heavy.
That's fascinating. You had trouble picking them up?
Oh, it's just a strange sensation that anything would be pulled against you. And so, yeah, a little bit of a trouble.
Wow. Do you feel like your face is falling as well?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, everything, you feel all of the muscles.
And don't even get me started with your balls, right? Can you imagine? Gravity's back, baby. All right. I mean, all that to say, here it is. I'm going to just share this with you because I think it's really interesting. Here's the breaking moment yesterday when Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, the two NASA astronauts who were intended to spend a week on the International Space Station, have splashed down off the coast of Florida after nearly 9 months in space. Have a listen to this call and the rejoicing from Command Center.
Two others accompanying them. They are just moments away from splashdown, traveling at about 16 miles per hour at this point. They have 4 parachutes to ensure a safe landing as they come back down to the water. If we just get rid of the topic bar for just a moment so we can actually see the
and splashdown. Crew 9 back on Earth.
Back on Earth. And there the applause.
Welcome back to Butch and Suni. I mean, I kind of feel sad. We've been covering this story for literally 6 months. I feel like I'm the only one who showed interest in it, saying, get these boys and girls home. Well, now they're back, and we're going to find out, do some experiments on them, make sure they're okay. And I'm sure they're going to get scanned and poked and prodded. And I really do hope they enjoy their family. They're like coming back to Earth. They're like, so what's going on? Do we all love Tesla still? And everyone's like, oh boy, get out of here. All right. So here's an update to a story. White Lotus star Jason Isaacs takes back comment about male nudity in Mikey Madison. He said, I said the wrong words and women have been monstrously exploited. So he was annoyed. And look, you can understand he was annoyed. Everyone just wanted to talk about his dick. He had this scene in White Lotus where he had some full frontal nudity. And like the truth is, male full frontal nudity is kind of a joke, right? It's in movies when it's like a punchline of sorts. And, if you watched the episode, that's what it was. His daughter, catches wind of his, family tree, as it were. No, and she's not happy about it. Oh my gosh, Dad, what the hell? That's all it is. Again, I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this for you. It's not a pivotal storyline here. I don't want you to get shafted or anything. You'll enjoy it if you watch it, but hey, you got to cover the news as it comes. So he's walking back a comment he made on the White Lotus press tour regarding his full frontal scene and how the sausage is made. Oh boy, that's a poor choice of words. He says, in an attempt to playfully dodge questions about whether he was wearing a prosthetic or going au naturel, in season 3's 4th episode, he told journalists that there is a double standard for male actors doing nude scenes and that the media would never dream of asking Anora's Mikey Madison or the Substance star Margaret Qualley about their genitalia. To his dismay, his remarks made a splash online. So anyway, he clarified and he said, I said the wrong words in the wrong way. I used the phrase double standard, which I didn't mean at all. There is a different double standard. Women have been monstrously exploited and men haven't. All right. So anyway, you got the message. All right. You can understand what someone's trying to say, right? That this is the problem I have with the world, right? Is I feel like the middle child who just wants everyone to get along, right? I'm always like, look, you understood someone's point. He didn't want to be asked about his dick, right? He didn't want to be asked about the prosthetics. He wanted to be asked about his art, right? Here he is, an actor, memorizing all these lines, performing it, and everyone's like, yeah, but what about your balls? How does that, So anyhow, I get it. I understand. All right. And it's gonna come up because I got to tell you, folks, it's so funny. I know this is not the norm, but there are people that don't like the fact that I'm trying to have a nuanced take on the Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds stuff. And I think most people enjoy that, but some people, they just want me to be something that I'm not, right? They want me to be someone who goes in really hard and one side's completely evil and the other side's perfect. And it's like, look, the thing hasn't even been to trial yet, but it is getting juicy. So let's start by sharing the Ryan Reynolds stuff, okay? I'm going to share with you guys what Ryan Reynolds said that is shocking people. So he's in this lawsuit, right? Because he's Blake's husband. He's Mr. Deadpool himself, right? Mr. Mint Mobile. He's got that Mint Mobile money. And he's basically filing a motion to dismiss, and he has to prove to the judge, you should dismiss me from this case. I don't belong here. And he essentially calls Justin Baldoni thin-skinned. And, look, when you know that the internet is going to be reading all of this commentary, you tend to throw the jabs. They throw the jabs in there. They're playing the game that Brian Friedman plays, where you get to say things and take like blows to each other, metaphorically, as you state your case. So I'm going to share what he had to say and kind of my whole thought about all of this coming next. Today's podcast is sponsored by Rula. Finding a therapist you trust shouldn't be so complicated or cost you a fortune. Rula connects you with high-quality, vetted, licensed mental health professionals that are suited for you. And here's the best part. They take most major insurance plans. That means instead of paying hundreds out of pocket, you could pay as little as $15 per session. Rula also supports you every step of the way, from finding a therapist to scheduling your sessions to tracking your progress and dealing with insurance. They make it happen. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey towards improved mental health and overall well-being. Head over to Rula.com/rushhour to get started today. After you sign up, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. Go to RULA.com/rushhour and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares. All right, here it is. The gossip rags are really enjoying the titles they can pull from this dramatic court filing. Ryan Reynolds says Justin Baldoni can't sue him over hurt feelings. Now, it's 38 pages long. There's a lot of case law and things like that in there, but I do think this one clip I'm going to share for you guys kind of like shares the tone. The Wayfair parties attempt but fail to assert 6 causes of action as to Mr. Reynolds. Each fails to plead facts sufficient to establish a prima facie case as a matter of law. For example, the plaintiffs collectively assert a claim for defamation without pleading a single complete statement or identifying the time or place of such statement, nor can they become no such defamatory statements exist. Further, the entirety of plaintiff's defamation claim appears to be based on 2 times that Mr. Reynolds allegedly called Mr. Baldoni a predator. But the the complaint alleges no plausible facts that suggest Mr. Reynolds did not believe this comment to be true. Instead, the relevant complaint allegations suggest that Mr. Reynolds genuinely, perhaps passionately, believes that Mr. Baldoni's behavior is reflective of a predator, even if the complaint plausibly alleged that Mr. Reynolds called Mr. Baldoni a predator while believing the opposite, which it does not. The law established that calling someone a predator amounts to constitutionally protected opinion, and the complaint's thin-skinned outrage over a movie character, the satirical woke nice pool, does not even pretend to be tied to any actual legal claims. Instead, it falls into the complaint's general allegation of hurt feelings, which in reality is nothing more than a desperate effort to advance the same curated bully image that the Wayfair parties created and disseminated in the retaliation campaign they launched against Miss Lively in August of 2024. I guess we can all call Ryan Reynolds a predator now, right? He's like, hey, it's all protected speech, so you just can call Ryan Reynolds a predator? I mean, listen, I guess the definition of predator is up to interpretation, but folks online are already compiling lists of all the times that Ryan Reynolds has been a predator, whether it be joking about things or whatever the case may be. There's an ugliness that is coming over this case. So much so, I'll share another clip here of instances where Ryan Reynolds' side is using Justin Baldoni's own words from his own podcast against him. We'll have that in a second. But first, here's what the lawyers of Ryan Reynolds had to say. Mike Gottlieb and Ezra Hudson, lawyers for Reynolds, tell TMZ, Mr. Reynolds has a First Amendment right to express his opinion of Mr. Baldoni, which should be comforting to a group of people who have repeatedly called Miss Lively and Mr. Reynolds bullies and other names over the past year. I don't know if they're talking about Justin Baldoni's legal team or if they're talking about the audience. I really don't know. Here's what a spokesperson for Ryan had to say. This might be the most interesting part. Here's the spokesperson for Ryan tells us the claims filed against Mr. Reynolds are simply a list of grievances attempting to shame Mr. Reynolds for being the man Mr. Baldoni has built his brand pretending to be. A man who is confident enough to listen to the women in his life. Look, I mean, these are massive, massive fighting words happening here. They're calling Baldoni a fraud and saying everything he stands for is a facade. That's essentially what they're doing. And again, as audience members, it's like, show me the evidence. Now, can I tell you guys a story? Do you guys want to hear an interesting story? So I'm out here in Los Angeles. I'm running around town. I'm doing all these different podcasts. And by the way, for those that listen to the Juicy Scoop podcast, I think someone said they listened 3 times. Thank you all so much. I got a lot of great feedback and it made its way to Heather McDonald. She said, come back next time you're in town. Folks, that's good for business. She's a gigantic voice with a great podcast. And the comments were so supportive, not just from people who knew my channel, but from people that had never heard of me before. It was a good rung up the career ladder for me. And I really appreciate that y'all believed in me, and that's why I invested my time and money to come here to go do that show. Well, last night, I'm not going to say where I was, but I was at a venue where I was just participating in a conversation with a friend of mine, and someone came up to me. I'm going to tell you, someone came up to me, and they said, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm a close friend of Justin Baldoni's, and you have been nailing it. They said, you have been getting it right. He has gone through hell and back because of this. And this close friend who I don't know who they are, they came up to me and knew things about me and about my coverage that clearly they have been checking things out. And I don't want to give any descriptive indicators as to who that might be, but I just have to say, I think it's insane in what a cultural moment we're in, that I'm walking through a restaurant and people are pulling me aside to say, I know what's happening. You're right. Keep going. And also, to be completely fair, today also, after interviewing Taylor Lorenz, I hear from people that say, hey, I hear from people that are against Justin Baldoni that say they know the full story and they're just not sharing it yet. So I hear that as well. And it's like, are they both? It's like, if you're hearing what Blake has to say and you believe her, that's what you would think. And if you're Justin's buddy, you would believe what he's having to say. So I think it's very fascinating that as I literally walk down the street in Los Angeles, traveling to do a couple podcasts, I am having strangers come up to me on intimate levels to discuss this case. I mean, what a cultural moment this is, really. So here's the moment, though, where it's like, if you thought it was below the belt before, Leanne Newton, our good pal here on Twitter, posted a further dig at Baldoni by using statements from his book and podcast as evidence of confessions to past predatory behavior. Whilst it's refreshing to be made aware that the Reynolds household does read books, this filing completely mischaracterizes Baldoni's meaning behind his words and is very unpalatable to read. Yeah, this is the future, folks. Anyone with a podcast can't have words they say said and used against them. I actually remember someone I had on my podcast, a close friend of mine was on my podcast, later got in a lawsuit. And as a witness, my podcast episode went into the deposition, and they asked them questions about it. And it's like, that's just the price you pay for putting yourself out there. So there's Justin trying to do good, trying to talk about like the ideas of past porn addiction and consent and things like that, and they're using his words against him to try to make their case. But hey, that's where we're at. So yeah, today I interviewed Taylor Lorenz, and you might say, who's that? Well, she wrote for New York Times, Washington Post, independent journalist, and she wrote that article that I had a problem with because she didn't credit me. And again, really, I didn't have a huge problem with her article, so much so as I thought there was more evidence that she was leaving out in pursuit of her sort of objective to talk about what she believes is the dismantling of the Me Too movement, because right-wing content creators are hijacking this story and whatnot. Well, I'll tell you this. I'll be completely honest with you guys, and you'll see for yourself. I'll be completely honest. We had a long conversation. We talked for 48 minutes on camera, and then we did another 10 minutes afterwards. And we went much longer than we were going to go. And I honestly think we could have kept going. I didn't agree with her with everything we talked about, but everything I believe about having good faith conversations played out exactly as I thought it would. I talked to a peer, somebody who's really pretty much my age and has similar core values to believe it or not. And again, I know I have other friends that have had spats with her online where you slam people back and forth. And to be quite honest, I think when you can talk to people in the flesh, you can realize the things you have in common and not pull focus away from the important issues at hand. Did we agree on everything? No. And quite frankly, did I push back on things we disagreed with? I kind of told her like, hey, we just don't agree with that, but I can understand what you're saying. I just don't see it from that same angle. And we were able to have the type of conversation you have with somebody when you're anticipating and expecting that they're trying their best. And I'm going to share that with you guys next day, tomorrow. I'll share that with you tomorrow. Okay. Tonight I'm flying. I got a show actually last minute. If anyone is in Los Angeles and wants to come to a show, I've got a show, I believe on Melrose on Larchmont, maybe in the Larchmont area. It's at 8 p.m. and I'm literally going to do my set and probably have to bounce after because I have a red-eye flight tonight. And then I have 2 shows tomorrow night in Nashville. I'll be at Zany's in Nashville. Guys, I'm flipping toast right now. If you can hear from my voice, I am done. I'm talked too much. I'm done. But I'm not. I got a lot more to do. So either way, tomorrow morning, I will air that entire 48-minute episode. Do what you want. Be mad at me for having the conversation if you must. But I will talk to anybody in good faith if I feel like it is a conversation worth having. And I think I'm glad that we didn't just resort to name calling on Twitter, but we actually talked. And I do have a greater appreciation for Taylor. I don't know if I would call her my friend, but I felt like we were friends after that conversation. And you might go, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Well, have a listen. Decide for yourself. All right, coming up next, we're going to hear about some political news involving the taking away of our First Amendment rights. the freedom of speech. That next. So last week, JD Vance went to a European, conference and told them about how they've got all these freedom of speech issues. And, every country's got their own issues, we all say freedom of speech, but there's restrictions when you look into it. Well, we're seeing it play out at Columbia University. Here is this LBC channel that I've been playing talking about how journalism students at Columbia University in New York City are being asked to self-censor themselves to avoid the sort of target from Donald Trump. Have a listen.
Listen to this. If you have a social media page, make sure it is not filled with commentary on the Middle East. And when a Palestinian student objected, the dean of the journalism school, a man called Jelani Cobb, stood up and said to the entire student body, "Nobody can protect you. These are dangerous times." That's journalism students at Columbia University in the United States being told to avoid posting, publishing, writing anything that might upset the current administration in the United States of America, and being told by their own dean, the dean of their school, nobody can protect you. These are dangerous times. And JD Vance stands up in Munich and claims that our freedom of speech is somehow under threat.
It's pretty wild stuff, really. I mean, it really is. We have multiple wars going on, but we had, I think, 400 people were killed in an Israeli attack on the Palestinian people. And they claimed they were, hitting, terrorist targets, but there were women and children that were firebombed. Like, this is happening. And I mean, at the very least, people should be able to speak out about it, right? They should be able to speak out about it. And yet we are seeing the dean of the journalism school saying, hey, we can't help you guys. This is not the time. I mean, I've had to wonder about my channel. I got this rinky-dink entertainment news channel. We try to do good. I don't want blood on my hands. I want to be, sort of a beacon for change or whatever. But it is scary out there. Do you wake up one day and your RSS feeds are gone? Your YouTube channel's blocked, and you find out you violated something because you didn't want kids to be murdered? And that goes in either direction. You don't want, it goes in either direction. It's heavy stuff. In this world we live in, there's a lot of despair. And I wonder if a lot of people don't chronically think of these issues because it's complicated. It took me a long time to understand, even partially understand the sort of geopolitical issues of the Middle East. It's really complicated stuff if you're not thinking about it. And most people are just trying to buy their groceries. Here's an interesting clip that's gone viral. Piers Morgan interviewing an economist named Gary Stevenson explains why punishing the rich people by massively taxing them is beneficial for the rest of the country. Because, other countries are in the same issue as ours, where there's been a lot of billionaires in a big exchange of wealth from the middle class to the upper class. And most people defend it. But why? Why does it have to be this way? Why do you have to win the lottery to just afford a home? It used to be you could just work a job at, a 40-hour work week at Sears and be the sole breadwinner of the family. And you could take a weekend, a nice vacation in the summer. And, you could, in this world, you're seeing dads getting second jobs driving Uber because their main job's not enough. And how many of us are working multiple gigs out here to stay afloat? Here's what Gary has to say.
If you know your history, can you point to a period in UK history, for example, where massively punishing rich people by massively taxing them has actually benefited the country?
Listen,
because I can't really.
My dad was born in 57. He worked for the post office, Royal Mail, 35 years. Never once earned more than the average wage in the country. He was able to buy a house, support a family. My parents are retired now. They own their own property. They're financially secure. That's not possible now. He lived in an era where the top rate of tax was much, much, much higher. The 50s, the 60s, the 70s in the UK, in the US, the top rate of tax on large estates was significantly higher. And in that time period, it's not a coincidence, ordinary people could afford to buy houses. They could afford to... Listen, this is not normal, okay? Read your history, right? You read Charles Dickens? Charles Dickens? In this country we're talking in right now, 150 years ago, ordinary men and women lived in desperate poverty, okay? That's going to happen again.
If you know your history, can you point
All
to a
right.
period
I mean,
in
look,
UK?
who out there is thriving? Not many. You gotta be business owners. This, like, the minimum wage is not a livable wage. And people say, well, that's just a starting salary. Well, yeah, but that's exploitative. If people need to work and that's all they're offered, and maybe, they can't afford a $400 payment, and then they get a flat tire, and next thing you know, they're homeless. They're one paycheck away, living on the fritz. What does that do to our society if everyone is living on the fritz? And to say something so noble as saying, well, once you make $10 million, maybe you get taxed at 90% after that, because who needs to make over $10 million a year? Who needs that much? Because the money has to come from somewhere, right? It doesn't come out of the sky. Jeff Bezos makes this money by putting out small businesses and doing all of the different things, paying people very low wages in order to, it's like you see it, and then people will start defending it and saying, well, they earned it, and they do this trickle down economic stuff. And we're seeing it play out. We're seeing this despair play out. And I have got so much compassion for everyone out there who's really struggling. I mean, I'm hearing it firsthand from people whose student loans just doubled in price due to different policies that are being enacted. And it's like it has to affect everyone's wallet to understand it doesn't have to be this way. The new tax laws that are coming out, everyone who makes less than $400,000 a year, your taxes are going up. $1,500 a year on average. That's a lot of money for a lot of people that don't have $1,500 a year. Why do the people that make over $400,000 have to save money? If you make $1 million a year, you're going to save an additional $36,000. Did they need the additional $36,000? Meanwhile, I was at the supermarket today, and every item, every baby formula was behind glass locks. And why is it behind glass locks? Because people are stealing it because they got to feed their babies and they can't afford it. And I want to live in a world where baby formula is free. If you have to steal for baby formula, you should be able to get it for free in the richest country in the world. That's the world I want to live in. And if people see this as political, I see this as goddamn humanitarian. I think most of us are on the same side of this. We're going to continue having this conversation. So I hope you enjoyed a lot of this eclectic content. This afternoon, we'll have more for you. I'm going to be running around getting podcast interviews. I'm doing Zach Peter today. I did Donna Bowling. You can go check that out, or Juicy Scoop. So I might be a little bit light on my content over here, but it's because I'm giving a lot of content elsewhere. So I appreciate everyone who's supporting me on the street, stopped to say hi, and here on the podcast. Thank you guys so much. I'll be back later. I'm Dave Neal, and this is The Rush.